Right then, guys, welcome back. Well, I'm joined still with Tord, Reklev, and Mike. So we're getting towards the end of the season now here, Tord. We've got 2 events left here in the EU. What have been your favourite events this season, or like any particular tournaments that stick out to you mentally?
I always enjoy the tournaments that bring something new. So whenever we have like rotation or a new set or something. Of course, this is also a pretty biased answer because that's usually when I do much better than normal.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like this season, for example, all my say 3 best tournament results were all at like when we had a new set released. So we had Lost Origins right before Peoria regionals, where I played Lost Box.
Yep.
And I won that event. that was great. Played a new type of take on that archetype, and that went really well. Then we had Silver Tempest with Lugia coming out, and I played Lugia V-Star at LAIC.
Yeah.
First event that was legal, for me at least, and ended up winning that one as well.
Yeah, won that one as well. Yeah.
And now recently at UIC, we had Scarlet Violet coming out and rotation, so a lot of things happening there. And then I played Gardevoir EX, and I didn't win, but I made it to the finals. I was pretty happy.
One game away in an unfavourable matchup as well, to be fair. So
yeah, I think with those kind of decks that you build around the rotation, what is it that you do to the decks that makes them so much stronger in the meta? Because you said Lugia V-Star, but there was loads of other Lugia V-Star about. What was it about yours that made it different?
My take going into these new formats is usually that I don't try to predict too hard what everyone else is bringing. So I don't try to pick any cards into the deck that are countering anything specific. So my lists are usually really boring. If you just look at them, they will just be a high count of most of the cards. And that kind of works out, right? Because they will always be useful is the logic, right? So I feel like whenever I can take advantage of, say, the early development of a format, right, where people are a little bit all over the place, don't really know what to expect, right, then I don't really have to hard counter anything. I don't have to be prepared for anything specific against the deck I'm playing, because the format is so underdeveloped, right? So I can get away with a lot of like these greedy consistency choices where I can just make the deck really streamlined and make sure that I can set up most of the time. And also, I have a lot of experience in the game, so if I get to play the game, then I feel like I can probably try to navigate around my opponents.
Yeah, I was going to ask, for those 3 decks you mentioned, so there's Lost Box, Lugia V-Star, and then Gardevoir, what was the one card in each of those that you felt like made your deck that like 2-3% better than the other builds of the deck?
Difficult to say. For Lost Box, it had just like a really high switch count, like a really high one. I think it was 18 switching outs total in the deck, which was like absurd. So I could like cycle the confis again and again and again, just like draw through the deck very aggressively. And it also had like a high pad to the P count, which I combined with Marnie, so it was really good at like knocking out your opponent's engines. So
Lugia V-Star, what was there?
Lugia V-Star, there wasn't anything crazy there. I had 4 research and 4 capture energy. But I saw a lot of the other lists were like definitely cutting down on those. I'm playing like 3 research, 2-3 capture. People also had like Tiny Lugia lines, so it was like 3-2, 3-3. Well, I was like 4 capture, 4 research, 4-3 Lugia. I was like maxing out all these counts instead of having any specific text or counters. I just tried to set up as usual.
And then what about the final one there, the Gardevoir? A lot of people looked at Gardevoir and were like, oh, it's a bit inconsistent here and there. So what did you do to make it consistent?
Honestly, it was the same thing there. I added 4 research to the deck and we just like turboed through the deck and made sure we could set up properly every game. I had the 1 tech card in the deck that was like kind of unusual for that event at least. And I added a penny that I think caught a lot of people by surprise as well. A couple of weeks before the event, people talked a lot about Mobile as some sort of lock option against the decks like Gardevoir, for example, where you can just trap a Greninja or a Manaphy or something inactive, and the Gardevoir player can never get out of that because they don't play the energies to attack with it. So then they're stuck and you can just deck them out. So Penny would be like a really good counter against that counter again. But it also had a lot of other good uses against Lost Box, which was expected to be one of the more prevalent decks in the tournament. So with the Penny, you can heal off your Pokemon as soon as they attack into it, which comes in really useful against like almost all the comfy engines, all the lost box variants.
Oh, very clever. I mean, I love that's the way your brain thinks, is just how can I make it as consistent as possible? Because I think we all fall into that trap of over-teching. One of the things I've always wondered with you when you're building a deck, do you have a team of people that you work with on it?
Yes and no. Like sometimes I do get some second opinions from friends that I test with, but for the most part, I'm just trying to figure out stuff on my own. I play some ladder. I write down deck lists. Sometimes I can get like a really good train of thought, and then I just sit there for like hours thinking about it, and I suddenly go to bed really late that day. But I had to like kind of finish my train of thought.
Right, well, my mind is currently blown listening to all this knowledge here from Tord, but I think we have to cut this conversation short here, but hopefully we get it back soon, because I think the next round might be ready, so we're throwing it back to casters.